हो चालेल. हो चालेल चालेल लगेच येतो मॅडम मी. चालेल ठीक आहे. थँक्यू मॅम. थँक्यू. Good morning all.
Good morning, sir.
Okay.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Yesterday we have started unit number second, right? Actually, it was started in last to last lecture, but in last lecture we have seen. Okay. Uh, the isolation circuits. Basically, already this topic is covered, but in 1-2 minutes, the students are still joining the meeting. So these are the two methods that is called isolation method. Isolation is required uh, because the power circuit and logic circuit should be separated, or you can say logic circuit is protected from any kind of hazards from the power circuit. So that's why we're using these two. So pulse transform method, and second one is a optocoupler method. Both we have discussed in the last lecture, and mostly optocoupler method is preferred in most of the circuits for isolation. Okay. Then second one, that the first topic that we have started in the last lecture, synchronize UJT triggering for SCR. So UJT is a new device for you. So that's why yesterday we have discussed about this device first. Once you know the device, then it is easy to understand the working of UJT triggering circuit, because most of the circuits UJT triggering is used. So even we have one practical for single phase converter, so in which UJT triggering circuit is used to trigger the SCRs. Okay, so this device we have discussed in the last lecture. This device looks like a JFET. It is very close in a construction to the JFET. The only difference in the construction of JFET and UJT, see, JFET is also a unijunction transistor because there is only one junction, but it is not called unijunction transistor. It is a junction field effect transistor, which is a voltage control device. And this UJT is a current control device. It has also a one junction, but the difference is in JFET, the N channel, the channel is heavily doped and a lightly doped P-type semiconductor is sandwiched. But in UJT, the doping level in P and N both is same, right? So equivalent circuit itself shown that it's a look like a diode, because the doping level is same, and normally in diode the doping level is same or uniform, you can say. So it is equivalent to the diode. Uh, Actually, the resistance RB1 and RB2, these are basically a channel resistance. So RB2 is a bulk fixed resistance that is between base 2 and emitter, and RB1, which is a variable resistance that is measured between emitter and base 1. Right? If you see the symbol, it is also slightly different than JFET symbol, because the emitter terminal is slightly downward direction. It is folded downward direction, and if you see the JFET terminal, it is straight, right? That is again a difference. And equivalent circuit is also shown here. So already we discussed about that. The important thing is that the characteristics of UJT is something different than JFET characteristics. If you see this characteristics, in this particular characteristics, the UJT turns on when the applied voltage between emitter and base one is greater than the voltage called as a VRB1 plus VPN, right? That is shown here. The voltage applied, if it is less than the addition of these two, then your device never turns on. Okay, so to turn on the device, the voltage applied should be greater than VRB1, that is the voltage required uh, for a recombination in RB1, and then the voltage that is required to break the PN junction. So peak point called as a VP is equal to the voltage called VRB1 plus VPN. So until and unless you are applying voltage greater than this one, your device never turns on, right? After that, what happens? If your device turns on, then the resistance RB1 decreases from several thousand ohms to few 10,000 ohms. Okay, the resistance RB1 is shown as a variable, so the resistance decreases. Resistance decreases, and the resistance is very small. So this region is called as a negative resistance region, where the UJT turns on, and because of that the RB1 value of RB1 decreases, and as RB1 decreases, the voltage across that RB1 also decreases. So see here, the voltage also decreases. It reached to the valley point, that is the on state voltage drop of UJT. So dear students, many times I told you that mute yourself when you uh, maybe attend the lectures, but few students are still not mute themselves. So from next time, definitely I'll mute all the students from my side, so that it is not good for the students, those who want to ask some questions. But okay, okay. So we'll again start. Someone is raised the hand. You can ask me what you want to ask. I don't know. I think Sanket. Sanket, you want to ask anything? Okay. So in these characteristics, see, this characteristic is very important. If you understand the characteristics, then you can understand the working of UJT. Okay. So hello. So in this particular characteristics, if you see that the voltage increases up to the peak point, at this particular point called as a VP, your device turns on. This much voltage is required to turn on the UJT. This voltage is equal to VRB1 plus VPN, the breakover voltage of a diode, and the voltage required to break the resistance, we can say, or decrease the resistance, VRB1, right? Or you can say the voltage that is required to turn on the device. So at this particular point, once your device turns on at peak point, the resistance RB1 decreases from few thousands of ohm to few tens of ohms. So as resistance decreases, the voltage across that resistance also decreases. That's why this region is called as a negative resistance region. So it decreases till the value point. At value point, it is a minimum voltage that is required to keep the device in a on state. This is called as a on state voltage drop of a device. So that point is called as a value point. After that, your current increases, but ideally voltage remains constant. Practically, a small voltage also increases, that is shown here. But ideally, the voltage VB, once the device turns on, is remains constant. Okay. So this is the characteristics of UJT that we have already learned in last lecture. The theoretical part for your reference is added here in a PPT. I can share PPT after this lecture, so you can read this one. Even I share my videos on YouTube, and every day I share the link. So if is there any problem to understand, you can repeatedly listen the video, that is possible, and you can clear your doubts. Even you can ask me the questions on WhatsApp, you can send message personally, or you can directly call me after this lecture, no problem. Okay, so that is open for you. If you want to ask questions here, you can ask me, right? So you just raise your hand, so you can directly give question into the chat box, so that I can reply you, or I can explain further if you require, right? So this circuit is a UJT triggering circuit of an SCR. So actual circuit, UJT circuit, if you see here, that circuit consists of battery VBB, R1, capacitor C, then UJT and resistor R2. And the remaining part is actually a thyristor where the triggering pulses are applied. So this circuit is divided into two parts. First part, that is a UJT triggering, and second part actually triggering to the power device called as a SCR. Okay, so if you see this particular circuit, resistor R1 and capacitor C, right? What happens exactly? The value of resistor R1 and capacitor is selected in such a way that when the capacitor voltage is greater than, see again it is depends upon, you can use even variable resistor here if you want to change the turn on time of UJT. Okay, so if R1 is variable, so you can adjust the time constant, that is called RC time constant. So RC time constant decides when to turn on the UJT. And if UJT is turned on, maybe time to turn on UJT, if you control, automatically you can control the firing angle of SCR, right? So this R1 is a variable resistor. So you can adjust the RC time constant. Exactly what happens when VBB is turns on, the R1, this capacitor C start to charge through R1, right? Whenever the voltage across this capacitor is equal to VRB1 plus VPN, that is the voltage for resistance between emitter and base 1 plus the voltage, that is breakover voltage of PN junction diode, right? So whenever the voltage across capacitor is greater than VRB1 plus VPN, remember this thing, to turn on your UJT, you should apply the emitter voltage always greater than VRB1 plus VPN. If your voltage, emitter voltage is less than VRB1 plus VP1, then your UJT never turns on, right? That is already shown in this particular graph. Okay, so in this particular graph, you can see that the voltage required to turn on this device is equal to VRB1 plus VP1. Okay, that much voltage is required to turn on the device. That I think here shown. So I'll share you the notes of the same maybe after this lecture, so that you can read the theoretical part in detail. Okay, but the voltage required to turn on the device, that is equal to RB1 plus VPN. Okay, see here, in this particular slide, if you see here, as long as the applied emitter voltage VB1 is less than VRB1 plus VPN, there is no emitter current IE because the PN junction is not forward bias. The value of emitter voltage VB1, which causes the PN junction to become a forward bias, is called peak point voltage. Is called peak point voltage. Okay. So the value of emitter voltage VBE1, which causes the PN junction to become forward bias, is called peak point voltage, and this peak point voltage nothing but the N VBB plus VPN. This N is this from next lecture, definitely I'll mute all students from my side so that such type of interference or maybe a disturbance definitely we can avoid. But this time we'll continue for this one. Okay. So if you see the voltage that is required to turn on UJT is equal to VRB1 plus VPN, right? This much voltage is required to turn on the UJT. So in this particular circuit, this capacitor C charges through this R1 whenever the voltage across this capacitor is greater than VRB1 plus VPN, sorry, then this emitter current flows and this will break the junction and your device turns on, right? Once your device turns on, this current I flow through this R2 resistor R2. Okay, this is the resistor connected between base 1 with respect to ground, so that when emitter current flow through the base 1, voltage will develop across resistor R2, right? And this voltage, whenever greater than the required voltage to turn on the SCR, your SCR turns on. Okay, so this is very important. The required voltage, we have to select the value of R2 in such a way that the voltage, when this UJT is on, the voltage across R2 should be sufficient so that your SCR may turns on. So remember this thing, that is important. So VBB turns on, capacitor C charges. The voltage across capacitor C is greater than VRB1 plus VP1. The UJT turns on. UJT turns on, emitter current flows through this R2. The voltage will develop across R2 whenever the voltage across R2 is greater than the triggering voltage required for the SCR, minimum triggering voltage. At least 1 or 2 volt should be applied, otherwise your SCR never turns on. Okay, actually the current is greater than whatever the given by the manufacturer. Okay, so in our practical, in our laboratory, we have a one SCR. So that SCR can be turned on if you apply current more than 8 milliampere. So that time the voltage required is approximately 4 to 5 volt. Okay, so the voltage across R2, if it is sufficiently large to trigger the SCR, your SCR turns on. Once your SCR turns on, the current flow through the load RL. Okay, so by changing the value of this R1, we can adjust the time constant RC, that is a RC time constant, and RC time constant, if you adjust, you can adjust the firing angle of SCR even. Okay, so as your resistors value R1 increases, the time constant to charge the capacitor also increases, and so that the time required to turn on the UJT also increases. So obviously the alpha of SCR also increases. So simply by wearing this R1, I'll share you the videos which I made for practical even. So practical through video is very difficult, but at least you can understand where the resistor R1 is there in a practical. So by varying this R1, we can adjust the time constant RC to turn on the UJT. Once UJT turns on, then SCR turns on. So automatically we can adjust the firing angle of SCR. Okay. So this is one of the circuit, that is UJT triggering circuit. Okay. The theoretical part for this UJT triggering is given here. Such type of waveform. See, this is a capacitor voltage. Your capacitor start to charge, and when it will goes to the VP, then UJT turns on. Once UJT turns on, then the voltage will develop across resistor R2. This is the actual triggering pulses, right? The second one is actually a triggering pulse, that is a VB1 voltage, and that is actually applied to the gate of SCR. So this first waveform shown as a charging voltage of capacitor, right? If you increase the value of resistance, the charging time may increases, right? Just see the cursor on your screen. So the capacitor charging time, you can increase by changing the value of R. Okay, the value of R, if sorry. So charging time of capacitor, that is shown here. So this voltage you can adjust so that the time that is applied getting pulses to the SCR, you can adjust. It means you can actually adjust the triggering, alpha, right? So this waveform actually shown the charging time of capacitor, that is a resistor R and C, right? That is RC time constant. And whenever the voltage across capacitor is equal to VP, only after that the UJT turns on. And once it turns on, current flow through the terminal called as a base 1, so that the voltage will develop across resistor R2, and that voltage is actually applied as a triggering pulse to the SCR. So second one is a triggering pulse of SCR. Now next one, that is another triggering method, SCR triggering using DC current. This is one of the most important technique normally used, but this is not actually a good method. So what is the exactly that we will see later on, but first see this circuit, right? This is a SCR. There will be a one switch and direct DC voltage is applied to the gate of SCR. Okay, so the continuous AC voltage is applied between anode and cathode, right? So until and unless you are applying, you are turn on this switch S1, the gate current is 0. If gate current is 0, this switch is off switch. So no current flow through the SCR. It means the lamp is off. If you see here, there will be a lamp SCR, right? Input cycle. So input cycle starts. Okay, you can say input cycle start at 0, and after 90° of input cycle, if you turn on this switch S1, then gate current flows through the SCR. So SCR turns on. Once SCR turns on, the anode current start to flow, and then your lamp turns on, right? So remaining 90° part may be flow through the load, right? So that time your firing angle is equal to 90°, right? So you can change the firing angle. So what depends upon your switching time. So whenever you turn on your switch S1, only that time the current is applied to the gate of SCR. SCR turns on and the lamp turns on. And when SCR turns on, the lamp glows. Okay. So this is a simple circuit in which direct DC current is used. Why I am explaining this circuit to you? Because the next part is the triac triggering using diac. This is actually a part of your syllabus, and 2-3 times the question is asked on this in examination, maybe in your INSEM as well as in ENSEM examination. So triac triggering using diac. Again, another device called a diac, that is not a part of your syllabus, but that device is used to trigger the triac. Okay, so if you see the diac and triac, both are very same, only the gate terminal is absent in a diac. Diac is a device without a gate terminal, and triac is a device with a gate terminal. Okay, so diac is also a bidirectional device as like a triac. If you see the characteristics of a diac, which is again very same to the triac, but there will be a little bit difference. Again same, it works as well in first quadrant as well as in third quadrant. Okay, there is a no gate. So as soon as the voltage applied between A1 A2, the terminals are also called as A1 A2, not called as a MT1 or maybe anode cathode. It is very similar to the triac. See the symbol of diac, only gate is absent. So it is uncontrolled device, but the it is very equivalent to the two diodes connected anti-parallel. But again, one important thing is that the breakdown voltage of diac is larger as compared to the diode. Your diode turns on after 0.7 volt, and then maybe a current flow through the device. But a diode, see the voltage applied between A1 and A2 is greater than VBR1, then your device turns on. After that, the voltage across device decreases, but still it is not 1 or 2 volt. It may be a different value, but different value for different diode. That is depends upon the manufacturer specification of diode, but it is not equivalent to 1 volt. So this type of characteristics occurs for diac operation. It is not exactly same as a triac, but very close to the diac operation. So again, we will see back to the triggering circuit, triac triggering using diac. Okay, so in this particular circuit, okay, okay. So this particular circuit consists of AC power supply. This is given to the triac. Triac is a bidirectional device, so current can be flow from either of direction. Meeting किती वाजता? हाँ, ठीक है, मैं आलो एक 5 मिनिट. So the supply voltage, that is the AC voltage, is applied to the triac between MT2 and MT1, and gate is connected to the diac circuit. This is actually a switch. If you see the previous diagram, S1 is connected. Okay, so this S1 is replaced with the diac only. Okay, so in this figure, again the same thing is happened. The voltage Vs is applied. This switch is off because the gate current is 0. So this current directly flows through resistor R1, then VR1, and then capacitor C. So again capacitor C start to charge the value of R1, and this second R1, basically it's a variable resistor. So the value of this R1 and capacitor will decide the turn on of diac, right? So the voltage across capacitor, if it is greater than breakover voltage, or you can say breakdown voltage of a diac, then diac turns on. Once diac turns on, the current, that is gate current, flow through the diac and apply to the triac. Then triac turns on, and then triac turns on, then your lamp glows, your device turns on, right? So until and unless the voltage across capacitor C is greater than breakdown voltage of a diac, your SCR remains off. So you can control. I'll just show you the output waveforms that is in front of you, right? So see the time T1, right? This is actually a triggering point. So time T1 is a time required to charge the capacitor up to the breakdown voltage of a diac, right? So this time you can adjust by adjusting the value of R1, right? But until and unless your diac turns on, your triac never turns on. So this part when triac is on, and here the triac is off, right? Because triac is off, it means your diac is off. Once your diac turns on, automatically triac turns on. So diac is a bidirectional device, right? So it can be turns on either positive or negative voltage. But again, the voltage that is applied to the diode is controlled with the help of this resistor, variable resistor R1 and capacitor C. So the time constant, RC time constant, you can change by changing the value of R1. So as your R1 changes, the capacitor voltage also changes, or it take maybe a more time to charge the capacitor, and that is equal to the better voltage of diode. Okay, so diode is normally used to turn on the triac, right? Again, the question may arises in mind of students or maybe everyone, why diode is connected here, right? Because in the previous circuit the capacitor directly connected. Okay, so what exactly happens? This diode maybe turns on for either positive or negative half cycle, right? So what happens exactly? If you are connecting the positive positive gate current for the triac, so it maybe turns on only during one half cycle, right? So what happens exactly? We are applying AC here, not a DC current. In previous circuit, we are directly applying a DC voltage, which is a positive, right? So that is sufficient for, or that is correct for if you're triggering SCR. But when you're triggering triac, right, with the help of this AC voltage, then we required a diac circuit, which may turns on, depends upon the capacitor voltage. Capacitor voltage may be either positive or negative, right? The diac maybe turns on for either positive or negative, but you can maybe control the voltage required to turn on the triac, right? So diac is another switch, bidirectional device, bidirectional switch, and this capacitor may be charged either on positive half cycle, either on negative half cycle, right? And for both voltage, maybe the capacitor voltage is positive or negative, your diac turns on. Once diac turns on, your triac turns on. So you can adjust the proper timing to turn on the triac, right? It means you can adjust the firing angle, that is T1, right? In front of you, the figure, that is waveforms. I think again it, okay. So maybe the triac conduction waveforms at in front of